Hello, and welcome to the We Get to Do This podcast. My name is Kaylee.
And I'm Jacob.
And we are your co-hosts.
In this show, we're going to dive into all things our lives, from our partnership to romance to entrepreneurship to growing our businesses together, our fitness journeys, and we're going to have a ton of different guests on that relate to what I just said in some way. We're hoping you enjoy the show, and if you do,
please feel free to follow us, leave us a 5-star review on wherever you listen to your podcasts, and enjoy.
And if you don't like the show, tough. Thank you.
Thanks.
Episode 15.
Yay.
We are both back again this week.
That's kind of rare at this point.
Yeah. The next couple of weeks will probably be the two of us.
Yeah. It's November. Daylight savings just happened.
And guess what time?
I know, because Kaylee got up extremely early this morning.
We were up at 5 a.m. Today is Sunday.
I was actually up at like 4:30. But technically it was 5:30.
5 a.m. on a Sunday is what time we got up.
It's the time you got up. I was out of bed before that.
Okay. Well,
it was great.
It was early.
It was great.
And now it's about 6 p.m., but I feel like it's already been dark for an hour. Every year, I feel like I forget how dark it gets so fast.
I don't really understand the whole thing, because I feel like it doesn't really benefit us in any way. It just gets dark earlier, and then it's supposed to be dark longer in the
I think it's supposed to be for the farmers. So in the fall, then they need more time, like in the morning to.
But it's like wintertime and snowing.
The animals, the farm animals.
I guess. Okay. Well,
but we don't have a farm, so yeah, it doesn't
thanks
really.
for teaching me something. But isn't it supposed to be more light in the morning then?
Yeah. So tomorrow morning, well, today was supposed to be lighter, but then it was gloomy, so we didn't really notice. I feel like.
So now sunrise is like 6:20 instead of 7:20.
Yeah, but it's still we're still continuing to get more darkness every day until the winter solstice, which is like December 20th.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how you feeling? It's November.
Yeah, and we're back. We have a new setting again for our background. Back in the OG place.
Maybe someday we'll figure it out.
Maybe someday we'll have our own studio. And we need new bar stools. So if anybody has suggestions.
Oh, I thought you were going to mention the creakiness.
No, the chairs we're sitting on, we need new ones.
Because they're creaky. Bar stools. So if you're listening and you have bar stools, or you have any suggestions on bar stools, let us know. I also need a haircut really bad, as you can see on YouTube. One of the downfalls of buzzing your hair is that it grows back really funky.
It does look pretty funky.
I'm pretty sure the sides are longer than the top.
I'm just kidding. It's not that funky. But.
Oh. And I have the facial hair coming back too, which Kaylee today said she loved so much. So, right?
No shave November.
No shave November. It is no shave November. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give it a whirl. Let's do it.
Let's get a before and after picture.
Well,
there's gonna be so much.
I've already been growing this out for like 3 weeks, though. I think, right?
Or more.
It should not take more than 3 weeks.
You have a couple centimeters of hair coming in.
Whatever.
How have your last few weeks been? We've missed you on here.
They've been good. I've been training a lot. I've been working a lot. But I feel like most of my work has been training and like filming and social media stuff.
Refueling,
eating, sleeping, doing everything I can to keep my body healthy. Been running the most and lifting the most I ever have in my entire life. But I feel really fit. Trade-offs. I'm ready. I'm ready to race. I'm ready to race so that I can just train again and not have to worry about a race, I guess. I don't know. I've always been someone that just loves training and just getting more fit for the sake of getting more fit. And races are fun too, they just add an extra layer of anxiety that, for example, you have anything like a knee thing flare up, a calf thing flare up, whatever. If you're training for something, it's like you get in your head of, oh, I have to get this next run in because I have a race coming up. Whereas if you're not training for something and your calf is extra sore, you're like, I'll just take an extra day off and I'll go bike or lift. You know, there's just more flexibility, I feel like. And as a coach and athlete myself, we try to tell ourselves and athletes that you should always have that flexibility, but it's just hard. You know, there's just that added anxiety and pressure. And so, yeah, I am very excited to run a marathon. I'm not that excited to run Indy half, but yeah.
So you're 5 weeks out from CIM
5 weeks out today.
as of today, and Indy is
Saturday.
6 days away.
6 days away. Indy's 6 days away, which will cap off. After Indy, we'll have 4 weeks. And we'll probably do about a 10-day taper. So it's 35 days out from right now. Less than, technically 34. With the 10-day taper, so 24 days of training left.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not that much.
No, it's not. And my Garmin watch is saying, it has me predicted for the fastest marathon I've ever ran right now. It has 3:12:55. It
went down again.
It just every workout I do, it drops a few seconds, and I really wanted to get to like sub 3:10, but also I don't need a watch to tell me that I can do that, you know. But usually my watch is pretty accurate on that too. So it says 3:12, and I still have 24 days. So realistically, it will drop at least another minute if I stay consistent. But it's like, I mean, you've seen me. It's like every other day I'm like worried about my hip or my knee or something. And it's a grind, like the amount of miles I'm running right now. And it's just beating me up for sure. So I'm definitely getting to that point in the training block where I'm ready to go race and ready to take a break, honestly. So
we should do a pod episode sometime about what you do, like if you're feeling like something in your hip or if you actually are injured, like what our injury mitigation strategies are to like get on top of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weekly thing. Honestly, yeah. It's a daily thing I think about, but I have an injury scare every week, honestly.
Yeah.
I feel as though part of me being hyper aware, but then also as athletes, and this is where some people may disagree, as athletes, ultra marathoners, whatever, the people that we surround ourselves with, our athletes and whatnot, we're not like, we're not, I'm watching that Starting Five documentary, and we're not professional basketball players, right? Or people that necessarily can afford to have recovery modalities come to their house and take naps in the middle of the day, right? But at the same time, we are stressing our bodies to an extreme level that makes us, at least makes me feel like, again, like I'm not a professional athlete, but it makes you have to like kind of be aware of your body in a different way than it does if you're not doing this, I guess. Follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I have to watch my diet. I have to, like I had some wine last weekend, and I swear this whole training block, there have been 2 days that I have drank. Both days, the following 5 days, my hip is acted up. And I can't imagine that's just it.
Yeah, it's instant inflammation.
Yeah. Both times that has happened. If I slack on strength training, and immediately something pops up. So it's like if I get a bad night of sleep and I don't get, just like living that way it's fun. It has its highs and has its lows, right? You start to think about like, okay, where is the line of what's too much? Why am I doing all of this as a recreational athlete? Is 3:10 that much more important than just running for running, like chasing that time, right? So, I don't know.
Well, and so that show, it's called Starting Five, right? So they just said that LeBron James spends $1.5 million on his body every year, which obviously is an astronomical amount. But like all of the things that you're doing right now are basically for like longevity purposes and to like have like health and wellness. And in my opinion, like our bodies should be the most expensive things, like the thing that we spend the most money on, because without our health, what do we have, right? And so when we look at, you know, your strength training or like having a run coach and paying, like we pay a good amount of money in like having good groceries and food and massage and acupuncture and chiropractic. I don't know. I feel like yes, you are doing more than the average person maybe needs to, but it's also cool because it is like all adding up for your like overall health.
So that brings up an interesting point though, because if we've all heard this line before of if it was about our health, we wouldn't run marathons.
Well, yeah.
Right. And that's the point I grapple with pretty much twice a year during training blocks at some point. And usually it's when things get hard. It's when things pop up. It's when you want to maybe, you know, your circle around you isn't training as much and you want to hang out with them and you're sick of doing the same 2-hour lifts every week in the last 6 weeks of training because you know exactly what your body needs and you just want more variety, you know, things like that. And I ask myself, like, I could be running half the amount right now.
Yeah.
I could successfully run a marathon off of half the amount I'm running right now. Arguably even less. So why? And if it was about longevity, like I could arguably be healthier if I was running 30 miles a week right now. You know what I mean? So I grapple with that. I was talking to a client about that last week a little bit. And then he goes, yeah, we are weird, aren't we? You know, and it comes down to why you're doing it in the first place. And for me, one of the biggest things I wanted to see this build wasn't the time at the end. It was how much can I handle per week? What is that threshold volume that I can handle per week? Right. And I've achieved that, you know, like that's the win. The consecutive miles I've been putting on this entire fall. Like I haven't been below 50 one time. And that's absurd. So, and even when I've had down weeks, the way that the weeks have kind of panned out is that you drop miles for 3 days. The fourth day, you kind of start picking back up. And by the fifth day, you're at, you know, your normal mileage again, so that the week averages out anyways. So it's a different way that I've ever trained before. And yeah.
It's been fun watching you. And last weekend we went down to Lanesboro for a little camper van trip. And you had a 21-mile run down there while I got to bike alongside on the Root River Trail. It was really pretty down there. We still got some fall colors, which was nice. But yeah, I mean, every weekend. Yesterday you had 18.
I've never had this many long runs. I hadn't been able to handle this many long runs. The 21 was the longest I've ever gone. Miles wise, duration wise, I've gone longer in a training run, but I've never done anything more than 20.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's been cool, and I'm ready to go see what happens now. So for Indy, I would like to, just because I don't remember what I said a few months back, but Indy, I would like to just go negative split and have a really good race. Start at 650s and end hard. I would love my average to be under 640. For sure, I would really like to get another sub 90 half. Like it's kind of a B goal. PR, I guess, would be B goal, and then C goal would be under 90 for the half. But that's, you know, we talk about raising the average of our distances, PRs too. And so my last two halves have both been under 90. If I can get my third again under 90, that'd be cool. But ideally, it'd be closer to 125 if all things go well. Mm-hmm. So, and then after the half, we'll kind of see what CIM holds because if I go do this half and walk away with a 125, which isn't out of the realm of possibilities, then I'm going to start asking myself, what's the goal for CAM? Is it sub 310 or is it sub 305? Do I just start running 650 pace and see what happens? So anyways, enough about me. There's an update. How about you and your fitness? How's your off season starting off?
Things are going well. I've been doing a lot of alchemy classes because sadly it's a local gym in Minnesota and they're shutting down in the next couple weeks. And I still had a bunch of strength classes to use there. So I've been going there multiple times a week, doing your strength classes multiple times a week, some biking, running here and there. I did trails at Lebanon this weekend with friends, which was really fun. It was very good for me to get back on the trails again. And yeah, I kind of just do whatever I want for the day. Find some kind of activity, and if I don't fit in a run or a class or something, then I've been doing some walks. And I love walking. And it's crazy just how much more you like pick up on as I'm walking by. I'm like talking to the neighbors and I hear the birds. I hear the leaves rustling. Just, it's nice. It's different than when you're running by. It's just my reminder to slow down a little bit. And that's like this season. It's meant for slowing down. And that kind of brings, so one of the things we wanted to talk about today is kind of the roots of the we get to do this. And I was just thinking about that because when I'm walking, I kind of have one of those like we get to do this moments and just like being here with you and stuff. And we realized we never actually introduced like the origins of we get to do this, and it's just kind of like we threw out we get to do this, but like if we could have an emphasis, it's like we get to do this. And if any of you listened last week when I had Anna on as a guest, something we're going to be doing at the end of every episode now is asking either our guests or each other like what is your we get to do this moment? And for us, it'll probably be more of, for the week, or it could be anything. And then for guests, like for Anna, I kind of left it open-ended with, can be of your entire life or your work. What's your we get to do this moment? And even just seeing Anna respond last week, just like kind of how she lit up, it's just fun to think about what that moment is. And as runners, I think we think about that a lot, or when things are getting hard, it's a very good motto to think like nobody's forcing you to go do CIM. You don't have to be doing Indy. You don't have to be doing these 60-mile weeks, but you do get to, and you have allowed yourself to get to this point.
Right.
And, it's come with a ton of hard work, but you've prioritized that and you get to do it. And what a privilege. And I think something that Jacob and I talk about a lot is just how privileged we are. Like pretty much every day, I feel like we say like, wow, we are very lucky. And whether it's a really long day at work or a day when we each have, 1 hour of patient care for me or client hour for Jacob.
Which happened last week.
Literally
both had 12-hour days and then an hour day each.
Yeah.
In the same week.
But both of those are good. I mean, coming home from a long day, it's like, wow, how lucky am I that I had an entire day of patients that chose to come see us. And then on our 1 hour days, it was, wow, how lucky are we we get to be home together at, 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. And again, it's just that we get to do this moment. But I'll let you explain, like, where did that even come from? Because it's kind of become your tagline, and now I get to be part of this. I get to be part of this.
Well, we get to do this came from a client of mine, and the origins of that was he was doing an exercise. I think I tell the story that he was doing an elbow plank. I don't remember what exercise he was doing, but he was doing an exercise, and it was like, he was a 6 a.m. client at the time, It was like a Tuesday. And, he's 40 seconds into this exercise. And I just remember saying something like, we get to do this, dang it, to like power himself through it. And then we went and visited this client and his brother when they did an ultra in Maple Grove,
Elm Creek,
backyard one. And they were, must have been 40 something miles in. I don't know. It was one of those formats where you do 4 miles every hour and you just keep going. It was dark at this point. It's 30 in the morning. So I don't know where the math is, but they were to a point where they were hurting. And I remember they came in kind of looking, groggy down, whatever. And then Chad, I won't share his last name, but he goes, they sit down for a few minutes. We help him out, whatever. And after like 5 minutes, he stands up and he's like, gosh, dang it. We get to do this, baby. And like, it was just like so energized and energetic about it. And the way he said that is how I want to say it. And I hope someday I can, because like that man specifically truly lives out that saying. And then I just stole it from him. So
he kind of gave you permission.
He did. And then whenever he comes to like classes or I see him or whatever, and I gave him a shout out, always like, hey, I stole it from Sally McRae. So, and we see people post on Instagram and stuff too. So we definitely didn't start this by any means. We just started using it for marketing and whatnot. And I just think that for myself, it really resonated with me more than Start With Your Roots, because Start With Your Roots was my original mission. And I got attached to that and I didn't want to change it. And then it was one of those like, be flexible, learn to adapt. You can have more than one tagline, and the we get to do this just kind of hit me more because maybe we've talked about this, but things that I've sacrificed, hardships I've gone through, yada, yada, to be living the life I'm living now. Specifically when I was at PRG and working full-time as a trainer, working at, I was working selling shoes at a shoe store. I was working my business, took a month off to go to Colorado and just train at altitude and learn about that. That summer, like 2 years ago now, that was where I first started thinking like, yeah, I'm lucky. Like this is privilege. And there's a lot of things that have happened that have allowed me to get to that point, good and bad, benefit, hardships, whatever. Right. And those were the moments where I started thinking like this tagline means something to me, and the we behind it, as opposed, because you see like I get to do this all the time and it's fine. I just think honestly it sounds selfish. I don't know why. And like, to be very blunt, I just think that the we is better. I think it's again community, right? I think finishing a race and being like I get to do this is kind of like a sort of a jab towards everyone that helped you get there. If that makes sense. So that's why I like the we better, because it's not a one man, woman, person show. It's everyone, right?
Yeah, it takes a village to get to where we are.
Right. So that's the roots of it.
And if you're wondering why it's we get to and the number 2 do this, it's purely because the handle was already taken on Instagram. So we needed to switch it. And then we're like, oh, 2, there's 2 of us. Yeah. So that's the 2.
To be honest, I really wish that we didn't have to do that solely because of hashtag purposes.
Yeah.
And like when people search for the show, we have to always say, we get to do this. 2 spelled with the 2. Number 2.
Yeah.
So.
But someday when we're ranked number 1,
it won't matter.
It won't matter because we'll just be right there and just pop up.
Right. And again, going back to like the selfish thing, I don't love, because like, again, we have a team around us that people don't see all the time that have very much helped us get to where we are. And they're listening right now. They know who they are. They know the role they've played. Parents, family, friends, whatever, mentors. And that's where, again, it's like, it wasn't just us 2, right? That's why it's a community thing.
Yeah. So on that note, Jacob, what's your we get to do this moment? Should we do of this week right now, or should we do like...
Wait, hold on. I think you need to tell your background with the "we get to do this" statement. It can't just be that you just like hopped on because I hope it resonated with you in some way at least.
No, it absolutely resonated with me, but I got it because you started using that as your tagline and like putting it on t-shirts and stuff. It's one of my favorite t-shirts because it just says "we get to do this" across the back multiple times. And I mean, I'm very big into the mental training side of things for races, training, things like that. And, I've posted when I do run any kind of run or race, every time I do it, I'm like, wow, how lucky am I to be able to be doing this? And a lot of that came from my mom. I mean, she's very positive and is always, saying like, how lucky are we that we, I did tons of racing with her, for example. Like, how lucky are we that we get to be doing this together? And, that other people, maybe can't do this. And thinking of all of our like mentors and coaches that got my mom and I to the ultras that we were doing. And yeah, again, just that it takes way more than just us. And again, that takes a village to get to where you are. And yes, we make these things happen, but also just how lucky are we that we get to do this? And I truly think that helps you keep going when things are hard. And it's not just about for running related either. I mean, it's, when you and I are sitting on the couch, for example, and just like hanging out and like playing a game or something, it's like, wow, like we get to do this. And there's so many things that are happening in the world right now, in our country right now. And I think when things get heavy, it's nice to like come back a little bit, like pull back. And for me, it's just a good way to be grounded, and to just really like be in touch with myself again, not to like get heavy about it, but yeah, it's just a good way of centering for me, I guess, and a reminder of why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I've chosen the career paths that I have and the schooling that I have. And
I think that something else that's important with this statement is that, I'm trying to think of how I want to go about saying this. Every chapter in our life is different. Every single chapter, every build you have in a race, getting married, having kids, a loved one dying, leaving high school, leaving college, starting jobs. Every chapter is different. And someday we will die. Quite bluntly, again.
wow.
And I just think it's important to, like, my mind goes to like a death of a loved one specifically for it, right? And how at some point that chapter ends in hanging out with that loved one or doing races with that loved one or whatever. Like, that ends eventually. And there's a meditative side of it where if you can be aware of that while you're doing these races and telling yourself the privilege you have to be with said loved one, and this is just a example, and tell yourself that we get to do this behind it, it's important, right? And I know that we've talked about this too with our families and whatnot, but all the people that they can't do some of the things we're doing, that never got the opportunity to do what we're doing, but have provided us with opportunities to do that, right? Through mentors, through love, through whatever. And again, I think that it kind of boils down to that. We get to do this there as well, and doing it for the people that can't.
Yeah. And truly everything in this life is temporary. Everything. Like, nothing is permanent. And I feel like even with a lot of the races that we go to or do with people, a lot of times you'll be like, we really need to enjoy and appreciate this because we'll never have the same crew of people here. We'll never have the same relay team, or we'll never be in the same spot again. and truly appreciating that moment, because even if you go back and try to replicate it, it will never be the same. Relationships will have changed. Like you said, family members might have passed. Like there's just so many different things that could be happening. And so to truly look at each moment and be like, wow, like we get to do this and it won't last forever.
Yeah, I remember the CAM group last year. We were at the house and I did that little speech the night before. And I think there were 6 of us in that house. I want to say 6 or 5, something like that. Yeah. And one of the things I talked about was I said something like, look around. This group of people, it's unique. A lot of you didn't know each other before we got here, really. And you probably won't know each other that well afterwards either, right? Like this weekend is special. Who the hell cares about a time? Like, right?
Yeah.
And we can try to replicate this weekend, whatever. So enjoy it, soak it up, hang out with the people you're with. We get to do this. And proving that point this year, we're going back and like, you're not coming. There's other people that aren't coming. There's more people going, but because of that, now we're getting hotel rooms. It's a whole different vibe. And it's going to be blessed for sure. But again, now it's a different vibe of like, again, now it's, look, I don't know when I'm ever going to run CM again, if ever. I don't really have a pull to do it again after this one, right? I'm going to go enjoy this because the people I'm going with are unique again. I don't have a single race planned for next year yet. So who knows?
Yeah. And who knows what tomorrow will bring, you know?
That's the other thing. Yeah. The whole, like, that's another huge thing. Like this running thing and lifting thing and whatever, that can be taken away at any point. Any point. And you get injured, or you get sick, and that's a brief indication, like viewpoint of what that could look like too. And we see that too in circles of people who have ran for years and then can't. Right? And we get to do this.
Yeah. We keep trucking along because we get to do this.
Those are the origins.
Hopefully that explains a little better for the audience. But yeah, so again, at the end of every show now, we're going to ask, what's your we get to do this moment? And do you want to do for the week or anything this time? You're first.
How about you go first and set the example so I know how to follow it? Go ahead. Please, babe.
All right. What's my we get to do this moment? I feel like now we've given a ton already. But if I had to think back to just one.
Oh, we cannot? No, you go ahead. This is like an origin one.
An origin one?
It's whatever you want it to be. It's who we get to do this moment.
I feel like all of mine include some type of nature and then being with other people. And I don't know, this is hard.
Well, there's so many too.
I know. I feel like I could list off for a really long time. But, okay. I guess one that comes to mind is this was about 6 years ago now. So for those of you who don't know, I lived out of state for a few years after undergrad and then was moving back home. And I had just started, found a really, really good friend out in Washington, but I had already kind of decided to move. Her name is Evan, and she's getting married next summer.
Oh, but shout out Evan.
Shout out to Evan.
We miss you.
Miss you a lot. But we did one final big hike before we left, which is called the Enchantments in Washington. And we were just out on that hike, and it was kind of the end of a chapter, but also the beginning of a huge one for me. And it's an 18-mile hike, except we got lost. So then it ended up taking over 20 miles. And I'd not done any ultras at that point. So it was a very long distance for me, especially at that point. It's already a long distance, but I'd never done anything like that before. And it's this just magical hike that's in central Washington. And there's just water everywhere, and there's mountain goats everywhere, and there's mountain peaks everywhere. And I was just with this friend who I really love, and just looking around, it was like, yes, this is super hard. And, you know, you get towards the end, it's like, okay, I'm ready for this to be done now. But then going back to like, okay, Kayla, you get to do this. And how lucky are you to be with this person that you love and are connecting with, who's now, you know, one of your best friends, and in this beautiful place in this state that you've called home for the last couple of years. And now you get to go back home and see your family and be with your family and your grandmas again. And yeah, I'm just thinking about all the people who don't have the ability to get to where I was, out in the middle of nowhere in Washington. I got to do it.
I love it.
Thanks. What's yours?
It's going to be fun sharing these every week.
I know.
Because they can be a week thing. It can be anything, right?
Yeah.
Meeting you.
Tell us about that. I'm interested.
Another time. My we get to do this is...
Hey.
I was between a few. And I'm going to go with the Hope Pass story because of the one you just told. So it was when I was in Colorado, which I already alluded to this, but I started doing a month-long sabbatical every year. And I hope we can do it again next year. Or something similar. And the first one I did was in Colorado. And I spent the first 2 weeks out there with Aaron and Isa and their family before you got out there. Oh, and our other two friends. Anyways, so I was out there, and Aaron and I and a friend of ours that was also out there at the time, we went and did Hope Pass, which for those of you who don't know, if you've heard of Leadville 100, it's an ultra trail race in Leadville, Colorado. It's kind of a big name because it's at 10K feet the whole time. And one of the I think it was the Western States was the first 100. I don't know what else. Leadville's huge. It's one of the first hundreds as well. And we did Leadville's a 50-mile out and back, and we did miles like 38 out and back, something like that. So we did the Hope Pass section of it, which is Twin Lakes to Winfield and then back up. And coming back up Hope Pass on the opposite side, so we were at probably like 17, 18 miles or so at this point, coming back. And Aaron, Tony, and I had all been separated. We could see each other. Like Aaron was like a mile ahead and Tony was behind me, maybe like 5-10 minutes. But we were all like kind of in our own zone, just getting up this hike, right? And we were going to recoup at the top. And I've never had a training run that was as hard as that specific run. And that wasn't even a training run because I really wasn't training for anything at the time. I was just doing something. And I was battling like wicked demons on this route. And it was we get to do this moment in the sense of what you talked about on the mental side of like, I'm out here in a spot that it's impossible to get to unless you hike or run to. And you're probably not hiking this far if you hike. You're probably only getting this far if you're running a good portion of it. And one, that's unique because so many people, can't do that, but also because so many people don't get to see this section of the trail, right? And utilizing that and knowing that I was with two people that I would never, realistically, I'm never going to go on that same trail with those two exact people again. I hope I'm wrong, right? But like realistically at the same time, right? So, soaking that in and using that as kind of a power to get back up the mountain. And then on the backside of that mountain, we just sprinted down. It was like a second wind and we were sprinting down, floating down the mountain. And that was bled into it, continued that we get to do this moment of just having a sheer joy and fun running down the mountain. That's what I think of tonight, at least.
Thanks for sharing. It's funny that our first 3 have all been like related to hiking and outdoors. So moral of the story, get outside, be with good people. And that will in turn bring you joy.
And listen to our podcast.
And listen to our podcast. Give
And-
us a 5-star review.
5-star review.
Because you get to do that.
You get to give us a 5-star review. Remember that.
It's a privilege, people.
Yeah. Al, we're talking to you. Episode 15.
Thanks for listening, y'all. And think of your own we get to do this moment for the week. Like, this is something that I hope you all do with us too, because it is a good way to kind of just reflect on where you're at and what is good in your life, even if you are going through a hard or tough time. Especially this week, we have a big week in the United States. So,
And this is dropping right after the election, which
yeah, we get to vote.
we get to vote. That's a good point.
All right, that's a wrap. Thanks for
Bye,
listening.
everyone.
Bye.